app key buttons. That's right. We have Azure Endpoint, Azure App Key. And what it's doing is setting that value to whatever you enter there. And there's our endpoint, and there's our app key, right? First few functions we run across. And there's our button, Connect to Azure Service. And what do you know? A button says Connect to Azure Service. And again, because it's very much a sample project I want all of you to learn from, I've kind of used debug.log all over the place, just so I could verify that I'm returning information constantly. So when you're actually building your project, though, and putting it into production, you're going to want to remove all this information. It's going to slow you down quite a bit. Then I have our Draw Insert button. And this is the first key Prime31 function that we're using here. So anything you see that begins with Azure, so of type Azure right here, azure.insert, that's actually a Prime31 function that we are using. So it's going to take something, our leaderboard item, and on success, it's going to use a Lambda function. Are you familiar with those?
I am. One of my favorite things in C#.
Yeah. It's basically an anonymous function if you're coming from a JavaScript background, I guess the best way to explain it.
Absolutely, yep. Doing this inline function so you don't have to create a whole other function and then refer to that function.
Yep.
If you want to do a debug.log kind of encapsulated right there, you just do it right in line. Yep.
Exactly. And
really cool.
It's very useful if you're only going to use a function one time for one particular case, right?
It's a weird syntax for people coming to the language. It's like, what is this? This looks weird. Parentheses, arrow. But once you get used to it, it's one of the best language features there is.
Absolutely. It took me a bit to wrap my head around as well, because you look at this parenthesis and you're thinking, well, what is this? And then it looks like equal or greater than, so all of a sudden you're assuming it's something to do with math, right?
That's true, true.
So really all I'm saying here is I have an anonymous or unnamed function. I'm not passing in anything as a parameter, and this is the function itself. It's really just debug.log, and I'm saying I've inserted a leaderboard item, and I want to just draw that name to the leaderboard. So I want to make sure that not only am I pulling in an item, but it's also the name of the person who I'm looking for too. So that is our draw insert button. So we can list all items. So we have another button here, and fields, so that we can list all items in the leaderboard. Again, like you mentioned before, we're going to have to connect to Azure first before we can do anything. Then scroll down here a little bit more. You can see each time I'm removing everything in our current list. That's why I'm using leaderlist.clear. So I'm grabbing the items that are in our list that are being drawn to the screen and removing them because, like you saw before, sometimes I would draw everything, and then other times I'd only want to return, say, values that are less than or equal to 200 or 100. Another example may be you want to look for a particular person within a game. Like, how do I know? I want to see all the scores just done by list item.username Adam.
Adam.
Right.
That's right.
So I can only return your information, display that.
Wow, this guy's got 300. I better play this game more.
That's right. That's right. So you can think of all kinds of creative ways to kind of use this. So again, this is very simple to link in many ways, where I'm querying this dashboard or this leaderboard. So I have my Prime31 function, azure.where, and I'm passing in, again, anonymous function. So I'm looking for the username, making sure the username is not null or not empty, saying, hey, give me a leaderboard, and make sure the leaderboard names are not empty. And then for each item in their leaderboard, I want you to say, hey, I've queried all the scores in the leaderboard, and I've completed everything with a count of, here's how many items are in this list. So you saw the first time we did it, we had 10, and I added Adam, and suddenly we have 11. So that's how you know that our leaderboard is actually being updated in the background as well. Then I'm setting my leaders list, which is above the top here. So this way my other functions can expose it. I'm saying for each item in this leader list, okay, debug.log, item in the leaderboard. So I'm saying take each item, write it out in our console like you saw before down here. And this way I know, or I'm guaranteed, that I've actually returned everything. So nearly wraps up everything we have for our Azure-specific functions.
Looks pretty easy. Just a couple function calls, give you a lot of functionality. Can you do me one favor?
Yes.
On that Azure object, just hit dot after it. I just want to see some of the stuff that kind of pops up on it.
Absolutely. Let's go back up to Azure right here. Azure dot.
Connect, can you expand that a little?
I don't think I can
the font size,
zoom
I'm
in.
sorry.
Oh, okay.
Azure dot. So at least we see the Azure dot. Everything else is still
here we go.
Control.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
Oh, you know what? Here we go. Dot.
It clears away.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Connect to equal. Of course, that's built in. So connect insert, lookup, update, where. Pretty simple API.
Yeah.
A few functions, keeps it nice and simple.
Yeah.
Just it's hard to kind of mess it up because you've only got a couple things available to you. But for reading data, that's all you need, right?
Absolutely.
Read, write, easy.
Very, very simple. And you see, like we mentioned before, at the very beginning, we talked about authenticating with the service provider. So that could be anything like OAuth or Google authentication, Facebook, even some of Microsoft's own services. So this way we can say, well, maybe we want the user to actually sign into one of these services first, and then we can verify if they actually are who they really are and add that to their profile.
Very cool.
So that really covers a lot of what we had here. Again, you can feel free to take a look at some of the source code we have. Let's go around the home stretch. Now we've taken a look at all the technical nitty-gritty. So we've walked you through the code, gone through the leaderboards, several of the functions, insert, delete, and update. Finally, we verified through the Azure portal, which you saw before. We added Adam with his fine score of 300.
Yes.
We pulled him into the leaderboard itself. But now we have Prime-31. What other options exist? Well, I quickly browsed through the internet fast, and I saw that another option was Bitrave. It requires Newtonsoft.json, so this might be a bit of a downfall for some people because that's a premium plugin for Unity. So Bitrave is free, and it does much of the same thing that Prime-31's plugin does, but you'll need to download this $20 or $30 asset from the Unity store. And essentially what it allows you to do is serialize and parse JSON through a RESTful interface. This runs across more platforms, but again, a lot of the functions work identical to what we have here. If you visit my site in the near future, you can also see that I have a tutorial coming in for that as well. Again, our goal is to get developers using Azure and understanding how to write leaderboards and really take advantages of everything both Microsoft and Unity has to offer.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, JSON.NET plugin, $20. You can get it from the Unity store itself and build it into your project. So coming around the home stretch, what are Azure Mobile Services? Can you give us some fine examples of how you think you could use some mobile services?
Leaderboards, user storage, user data storage on there, multi-platform data storage.
So you're saying if I could really keep a lot of the same save information on perhaps Windows 8, and then how else could I use that?
All my player settings across all the devices that I want to deploy to. So I want to store the user's profile information, their name, whatever other information I'm collecting. Not just high scores, but all sorts of other information. Maybe I want to store gameplay statistics, and I want to, I'm not using another analytics service. I could store all that data myself up there, so you can actually do all of your own little analytics, user storage, user profile, anything you can store data for.
Not a bad idea. Or maybe if you're a developer who works on multiple games, you could say something like, well, I see you've already played games A, B, and C. In that regard, why don't we give you games D, E, and F for free, or perhaps at a discounted rate? So their own backend, they could say, you've already logged in through OAuth in this way. I can verify you are who you say you are. You have several of our games, so I'll throw you a bone. Here's 1 or 2 for free for you.
Very cool.
Again, we can create an Azure mobile service, both through the dashboard itself that you just saw in Internet Explorer, or Visual Studio has its own tools built in to the Azure SDK. Again, no time to get into that, but feel free to look at it on your own. Compiling our project. We want to understand how the DLLs work. So again, very quickly, Unity will look at the plugins folder for any DLLs it has in there. Then as you're building for a specific platform, it's going to look for, say, Metro or WP8 for Windows Phone 8. Those are essentially preprocessor directives that Unity has built in already. If I'm going for Windows Phone, it'll look just for those plugins and build Azure for that platform, or DLLs for that platform. Again, if you're looking for other options in the future, Bitrave exists as well, but again, that requires a $20 additional plugin. This source code and more is all available at github.com. So feel free to look for me on GitHub. Ask any questions you'd like there. So I have many detailed tutorials along with about 5 or 6 times as many slides as we have here.
Nice.
So step-by-step instructions. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. But I'm confident that you'll have no problem getting started as well. So thank you again for joining me today, Adam.
Thank you. That was a wonderful session. And join us next for our final session of the day, adding the finishing touches. We hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome back. Our last module of the day of developing 2D and 3D games with Unity for Windows. I think this has been awesome.
I've had a great time.
This has been amazing. I know I've said it over and over and over again. I'm so happy about this. I think this has turned out well. Hopefully you've gotten a lot of good information from this. But I do want to point out that the folks watching this live right now, hang on for a little bit at the end of the session after we say goodbye. I've got some directions for a couple little random drawing that we're going to do for a few of the folks that are joining us today. So just hang tight at the end, and let's get rolling on adding and finishing touches, Module 10, the last one of the day.
Beautiful.
All right.
Home stretch.
Let's talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to go meta, talk about what we're going to talk about. In our module overview here, we've got live tiles, integrating a privacy policy, a pause screen for your application, and in-app purchases. And we're going to do this all in Zombie Pumpkin Slayer.
Yeah.
I had to make sure that was working there. Very nice. These guys in the back are awesome.
Yeah.
Woo. So, live tiles.
Okay.
Very cool way for folks to integrate additional pop into the application.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea behind this module is there's things that you want to do in your game to differentiate it from the rest of the games.
Right.
Leaderboards, your session.
Right,
in fact, I tried to do leaderboards during the break. I thought it'd be really cool to get them integrated in ZPS during the break here, and we almost got it.
We got it up and running.
Got up and running, got it actually querying Azure. I just didn't have enough time to do the GUI elements to list all the names in there, but it was close, and we only had about a 15-minute break. Yeah. So live tiles, they give the user extra info. A great example of this, let me show my start screen on these computers here.
Very nice, I like that.
See
I like
the little pop going on here? Live tiles, they kind of catch the user's eye. 2, they give relevant information without always having to go into the application. So in news and weather, stocks, 3 things that I use it for all the time. So what we can do, being that we're doing gaming here, is talk about ways that a game could maybe have you come back easier to the game. You want to entice people to come back to the game.
Right.
So cut the rope, for example. That does a really neat way of doing it. They show you how many stars you've got. It's kind of an enticing way to come back. So how do you use a live tile? What is a live tile? We saw that they flipped. Are you limited to the size of them?
Right.
There are many, 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 many different tile templates that you can use.
It looks like it's displaying information of some sort, but I guess it doesn't always have to do that.
It can be just a simple message. It could be an image. It can be a gallery of images. Like on here, I show an example for Windows. Bunch of image tile format. This is tile-wide 310 by 150 image collection. So this is actually the template name that you would use if you wanted to do this.
Okay.
And you can do this in games. You can do this in C# XAML applications. You can do this, desktop or Windows Store applications, Windows Phone applications as well.
Yep.
On the C# side, outside of the gaming side, you can do this. If I go to a browser here, tile template catalog, Windows 8. Let's search for that. This shows you, this is a list. Let me increase the size here. This is a list of all the different tile templates. And you can use all of these in your application, any one of these. You just have to use these names. And we'll look at how you use those names.
A lot of diversity there.
A lot of diversity to show you. Here's on Windows. Here's if you want to do it on Windows Phone.
Okay.
So many different formats if you want to do wide or with text on it.
Yeah, and actually, I like that it looks very similar on both platforms as well.
Yes, I like where the convergence of the platform API is going. So very cool ways, right? You can see that you have a ton of potentials here, really however you want to display it. Whether you want to do text or an image and text or multiple images, you have a variety of ways and sizes that you can do this. Now, with tiles, you can include them as local tiles in your application. In other words, they can be something included in your project, or they can be a remote tile. So you can actually point somewhere on the net.
Yeah.
And your application can pull that down from that location and set that as a tile.
So maybe if I want to send people updates or things, perhaps seasonal information later on, I don't have to actually rebuild and republish my entire app?
Correct. Correct. So you can use something on the net, point them to an image out on the net. Prime31, actually, when you download, because we're going to be using Prime31 here today, when you download it and install it, they have actually an example of pulling a remote tile down from the net. Beautiful. Very cool. So you could write a service around that, maybe a website or an Azure mobile service, and use the data and services, server-side services to bring back data. Really cool things that you could do there.
I like it.
All right, so for this, we're going to be using one of the plugins from Prime-31. This is the Microsoft Essentials plugin. Of course, you want to go to prime31.com and you want to install the package into your project. In other words, you double-click on the package that you download from their website. Early on, when we talked about architecture, the first module went over what packages are. And they're just simply a way that you can redistribute stuff that you can use across your projects.
Okay.
So the Prime-31 plugins come down as a .unity package file. Double-click on it, it goes into your project. Now, last session, you were showing that with Azure, you had to add the P31 Metro Azure DLL.
Yes, correct.
To unprocessed DLLs.
Okay.
So in this case, it's slightly different. We need to do this one as well. P31 Metro Essentials DLL, and we'll look at that inside of Unity to what that looks like. And ensure you have Windows Store selected as what you're building to. This does not run in the editor. This is meant for when you do your actual build because this calls into a platform-specific API.
Correct.
And I add a little tech note here just for the folks that like to really understand how things are happening because Unity will generate your Visual Studio project, as Jason was showing yesterday. Mm-hmm. It doesn't overwrite that project. So if you happen to have your project already generated, your Visual Studio project,
okay,
and then you decide later on to install Prime-31 in, well, that project needs references to those libraries.
Right.
So either you can do a comparison between a new generated project and an old one, and you can see where your C# project differs.
Yeah.
Update the post-build step, add the reference manually. You can. I've done it before manually.
All right.
Or you can just, if you don't have anything custom in your project, you can just delete the build that Unity creates for you and just have it regenerated again. So that's why I have a little note. Many ways to do it. Some folks like it, the technical information, so I just want to add a little note on there for it. All right. What do you say we do a demo of this?
I'd love to see this.
Okay. So first, let us do this. I'm going to turn this off so we don't really get a full preview of what's going to happen here.
Okay.
Even though I know you just saw it.
Very vibrant dashboard. I like it.
And we can see what I was doing during the break here. We're trying to get the leaderboard integrated here. So actually this window is going to look a little funny when we do our build because we were concentrating on getting this as opposed to the size of this.
Yeah.
So we'll notice when we finally export, we're going to get a little extra blue probably on the background. The title screen will need a little fixing, but that's okay. We'll talk about it now and you'll know what's going on. So in here, I've downloaded and installed that Prime-31 project in here. And as you were mentioning in your session, we get things that show up in plugins, Metro.
Okay, looks like platform-specific folders.
Metro Essentials, Metro Store. So we're going to talk about the Metro Store shortly. For Metro Essentials, we can just simply double-click on Test Out a Scene here. But I've got this code brought into my application.
Okay.
So let us load this up over here. And let me find... We're going to check out a couple things here. All right. We've got this that we're going to look at in one moment.
Right. Again, platform-specific code.
Platform-specific code.
Preprocessor directives.
That's right. There. And I'm going to load up my build settings here. Control-Shift-B for the hotkey fanatics.
Yeah.
Windows Store is my player. Now, one thing that got me when I first started Unity is everything defaults in a project to being a PC standalone build.
Okay.
If you need to make it any other platform, you actually need to highlight that platform and click Switch Platform. Otherwise, you're not actually...
click, but don't switch.
Just click, it doesn't do it. You've got to actually switch platform, and it re-encodes and processes and does a bunch of stuff on the back end. Now, if we look under the player settings, and you were talking about that last session here, and Jason was talking about that too, this gives you your platform-specific settings.
Right.
And so what I did here, couple things. So a wide tile is 310 by 150.
Okay.
So when you deploy your application by default, it doesn't have a wide tile with it. Not everybody uses wide tile.
Right.
So for example, if I look at Unity here, I don't have a wide tile for it.
Yeah.
But Zombie Pumpkin Slayer, pause for effect. I love it. Zombie Pumpkin Slayer does have this. That game, ZPS, does have this here. This is the wide tile. So Matt created this.
Yes.
This is simply a 310 by 150 image.
Yeah.
So I set that here because that will get pushed out to my Visual Studio solution.
Right.
So that will be there by default. Now that's not a live tile. That's just my wide tile.
So it's just an image essentially at that point.
It is nothing more than an image. In fact, if I come over here and I look, that's my image right there. That is my wide tile right there.
Well, something I want to point out real quick, I found it saved quite a bit of time, is if you look for the Microsoft Web App Template at their GitHub, they actually have a tool you can use that'll automate this. So you can pass in one image. It'll then center and process everything as a web worker in the background. You just drop in an image, and it'll spit out resulting image sizes very quickly in a zip file for all of those.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this way, all that done in about one fell swoop, 10 seconds.
That's better than, I did one actually about a year ago, which will only do the main ones for a project where you drag and drop an image onto it, it generates it, and but doesn't do all of them. So.
Saved me quite a bit of time.
Yeah,
I love
very cool. All right, so this is just an image here. If we look on our player settings and we scroll down to our publishing settings, now, David, that's the one that you were talking about in your session here,
Yes.
P31 Metro Azure. We need to tell Unity not to process these libraries, which means only process it once, not
Right,
twice.
it's still doing the processing, but only one pass.
And so this one here is P31 Metro Essentials.dll unprocessed plugins. You must do this. This is in the Prime 31 documentation. If you don't do this, things won't work. That is a must. So once we've got that set, now the only other thing you need to do after bringing in that project is to do something in code. Well, I shouldn't say the only thing. One of the few remaining things we need to do.
Okay.
In your Unity code, you simply need to say, hey, in my resulting project, this is where my live tile is going to be.
Okay.
And then secondly, it is one line of code to tell the Windows system that you want to use this new image.
As your wide tile image.
As my wide tile. Now, check this out. So we looked at all of those different tile templates on the website. If I click on dot here, look at it's already all set for you. You don't need to use like a string for a name or anything. This is all right here.
So you're basically just passing in the image that is the correct size to begin with, and it just draws it for you.
Yes. Now, there is something to be aware of, and this has bit me many times because I don't know, I might be copying and pasting other code, and I might have tile, square, block. If you pass in a wide tile to tile, square, block, nothing will happen. It just won't work. Won't do anything.
It's expecting something.
Yep. So you got to make sure that whatever template you select, that you indeed have specified the right stuff for it.
Perfect.
So we're doing tile wide image, which is that same image 310 that I was showing you before. All right. So we'll save that. This is all that we need here. Now, we need to create our build.
Okay.
And Jason was demoing this yesterday, so we'll just do this real quick here. Build, Windows Store.
Okay. Compiling everything in the background.
Compiles actually a lot faster than my machine is currently going.
Yeah.
So this is nice. I'm taking the system home, guys.
I like it too.
Very cool.
Post-processing player, doing all the processing in the background. It's going to spit us out a nice, beautiful Unity project at the end.
Here we go. Wait for it. No whammies, big money. Anybody remember
Big money,
that show?
big money. Yeah, of course we do. Come on.
Not everybody remembers that.
I know. We're just waiting a moment for a zombie pumpkin slayer to be brought.
Zombie. So here is our resulting project. This generated a Visual Studio solution. Again, Jason was demoing this in Module 5 yesterday. Yeah. So I'm going to open up the Zombie Pumpkin Slayer project. Pause for effect.
Yeah.
And what happens here, if we open this guy right here, we don't need to make any changes. I just want to show you what happens. app.xaml.c#. I'm going to open that file up. And if I scroll down,
okay, as our list our functions available.
we can see inside is a method called initialize Unity.
Yes.
And what Prime 31 has done is basically injected their code into there that talks back and forth between here and your Unity code. Your Unity-specific libraries are all packaged up underside this data folder here.
Okay. There's that Lambda function again we spoke about earlier.
Yep, that's right here. So it's all set up for you. We don't need to make any changes to this file. We don't actually need to make any changes to any of the code here.
Okay.
What we do need to do is bring in our image, whatever we want to use. In this case, I'm going to show and explore. I like to keep everything in my project here. So even though I'm not going to use this image in my project, this come back right here, come back, pumpkins are attacking. This is going to be our enticing image to get the users to come back.
I like where we're going with this. I've had that issue in several other games before, and it's worked very, very well.
This is what we're going to do. Come back, pumpkins are attacking. So I keep this in my Unity project, although we do have to bring it into our Visual Studio solution.
Okay.
And that by itself is pretty easy. All I did was I literally dragged and dropped it in here.
Doesn't
and
get easier than that.
And I just renamed it because my code is actually referencing livetile.png. That's the only reason I renamed it.
Ah, all right.
Now, we go ahead and we can run this.
Let's build this bad boy.
We run Zombie Pumpkin Slayer.
I'm looking to get my sleigh on.
Now we know our title screen is going to look a little funny here, so forgive me for that. We're trying to get too much stuff done during the break. The leaderboards, when we open source this shortly, have the demo project available out on GitHub. I'll make sure that this is actually integrated and working, or at least template that you can finish off. Maybe we can do a tutorial on that.
Perfect.
But then you can see it's used inside of a real game. So, play game. All right, there we go. Now, let's go ahead and switch away from this, because the call should already have been done to the system to update this tile.
Okay.
Now, I actually turned my live tile off before.
Whoa.
There we go. There we've got the flip. Let's see if we go away and go back. Now, one other thing I do need to update in my project is I have a default Unity icon here, my little small icon.
Okay.
So I haven't finished off and specified the rest of the icons for the project. And I believe Jason talked about that yesterday as well, where under your player settings, you have all the different images that you can specify.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's under...
It's almost like your app manifest file.
Under icon, yes. Everything that's generated here, everything that's listed here, gets pushed out into this project in your package.appx manifest,
yes.
Visual assets, all that good stuff there. So that happens, that works for us. We get our little live tile here on our screen.
Okay.
Come back, pumpkins are attacking.
It's a great way to send push notifications, right? Someone's coming after you, or maybe it's Halloween, you have some kind of special reward scenario going on.
Come back for a free weapon,
Ah.
right? You could do something like that. Different ways to entice the user to come back.
Yeah.
You can really, especially, you can pull users in. You just got to be a little smart about the marketing that you want to do,
I remember
the message on it.
My EverQuest days on Halloween, I'd have special events where all of a sudden Skeleton Kings would come down. And looking back, I wish,
Kings, yes.
I wish I had some sort of push notifications back then instead of me having to log in and hope for the best.
So integrating a live tile,
Yeah,
pretty easy.
I like it. We
do you
did just a few steps, and what was that, 5-10 minutes at most?
That's it.
Got it done.
Bring in your library, add your unprocessed plugins.
Yep.
So bring in the Prime 31 package, add your unprocessed plugin for the P31 Metro Essentials, that is case sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you simply add on the image into your resulting project, make your API call, 2 lines of code.
Right.
Done.
Looks like a very small, simple way to make a very large change to your game and add that sense of professionalism.
That's right. That's right. Now next, let's talk about a privacy policy in the game. What's a privacy policy? Why do you need a privacy policy? Well, I'll tell you. Privacy policy is required, is absolutely 110% required. I've seen apps get rejected for this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. Yep. As it stands today, privacy policy is required if your app sends any data to a third party.
Okay.
So if you're integrating with, I don't know.
Say an ad service.
Ad service. You are transmitting potentially some sort of information.
Correct.
Right? Because you're using the internet to transmit that data,
right.
Something's required. So you need a privacy policy, 2 places. And I actually have a little sample of a privacy policy here. I don't even want to call it a sample. This is an extract, the way that it stands currently on the documentation for Windows Store certification. A very similar thing for Windows Phone as well. Your app must have a privacy policy statement if it is network capable. So you need to basically tell users how you are going to use their data, if you use it at all. A privacy policy URL is required in this case during submission. So when you go to the portal and you go to submit your application that you made the build for, it says privacy policy URL. If you don't specify it, you will fail certification. Now, the certification process is pretty fast. I've seen apps certified in under 2 hours before.
Yes.
So, if they reject it, you can turn around and just add that privacy policy URL and resubmit it. But you also need it there, and you need it in your application as well. So let's do a little demo for showing it inside of an application.
I would love to see this.
All right. Let me show you the demo. I should have had a demo slide there. Let's go back to our code over here. Now, this also uses the Metro Essentials. And this one is even easier because all that we need is settings pane, which is something from Prime 31, .register settings command. We're going to give it a name called privacy policy. This is what's going to show up on the side of our screen, and I'll demo that in 1 second here.
Okay.
This is my privacy policy. Consider a URL as well to bring you to site. So you can actually have text in here of your privacy policy, or you can actually have you could do a Lambda method here.
Yep.
Unity has a call built in to open a URL, so you can actually just, if you have your privacy policy hosted on a website, you can just actually just call off the URL here rather than displaying text.
That's actually what I do quite a bit too to save some time. I'll just have it stored in a publicly accessible SkyDrive link and then share it that way.
Share it that way. So let's run this zombie pumpkin slayers. This is going to get so old by the end of the day. I'm sorry, audience.
No, I like it. I like the energy we're bringing to the party right now.
All right, so let's run this game. And we'll get through this first screen here. You know, I feel like this is a...
Look at that beautiful game. That performance.
So I click on settings. I go to privacy policy.